Have you ever been around someone who just completely drains your energy? Someone who needs everything done their way, on their terms, and the moment you push back even slightly, everything explodes? Maybe it is a coworker who turns every small disagreement into a full-blown crisis. Maybe it is a family member who makes every gathering feel like walking through a minefield. Or maybe it is someone in a relationship who leaves you feeling exhausted just from existing near them. If any of that sounds familiar, you are in the right place. Because today we are talking about high-conflict people and, more importantly, how to protect yourself when you are dealing with one. I am going to walk you through 5 powerful tools that can genuinely change how you navigate these relationships. And here is the truth. At some point in life, everyone encounters a high-conflict person. This is knowledge everyone needs. So before we get into the tools, let us get clear on what we are actually dealing with. A high-conflict person is not just someone having a rough week or going through a hard time. The defining characteristic is a lack of flexibility in their personality. They struggle to make room for your perspective, your feelings, or your lived experience. And when someone cannot do that, it becomes nearly impossible to feel genuinely safe around them. Because real safety in any relationship requires space for both people. Space to express yourself, to disagree, to be imperfect, to be human. High-conflict people simply cannot offer that space. And here is the part that makes it so exhausting. There are always consequences when things do not go their way. It might be an explosion, silence, guilt, or blame. But something always follows. And over time, that pattern starts to shape how you show up around them entirely. So here is the number 1 sign you are dealing with a high-conflict person, and I want you to do a quick exercise with me right now. Think of someone in your life who might fit what we just described. Got them in mind? Now imagine walking up to them and simply saying, "Hey, something happened recently that did not feel good to me, and I want to talk about it." Now pause. Do not think about what they would say. Instead, notice what just happened in your body. Did your shoulders tighten? Did your heart rate climb just a little? Did a small wave of dread wash over you when you pictured their reaction? That right there is not anxiety for no reason. That is your nervous system, one of the most intelligent systems you have, sending you a very clear and direct signal that this relationship does not feel safe. Your body already knows. We just have to learn to listen to it. And here is where it gets really interesting. Because maybe your nervous system did not spike with fear. Maybe your response was quieter than that. Maybe you just thought, you know what? It is not even worth bringing up. I will just keep the peace. I will say nothing. I want you to hear this clearly. That thought is not wisdom. That is not you being the bigger person. That is data. That quiet resignation, that automatic decision to shrink yourself and stay silent, is pointing directly at a high conflict dynamic. Because in a healthy relationship, you should be able to bring something up without dreading the aftermath. The fact that silence feels safer than honesty tells you everything you need to know. Now, before we get into the 5 tools, I want to give you some important context. Because understanding why high-conflict people behave this way is actually going to change how you respond to them entirely. Now, before we get into the tools, I want to give you some context. Because understanding why someone behaves this way is actually part of what protects you. Most high-conflict people did not wake up one day and decide to make everyone around them miserable. This pattern developed over a long period of time, often starting in childhood. At some point, they felt completely unheard, unseen, and unsupported by the people who were supposed to show up for them. And that wound, that deep unmet need, created something intense, almost desperate. This need to be understood, to be right, to be validated at an extreme level. Now I want to be very clear here. This does not excuse the behavior, not even close, but it does explain it. And here is why that matters for you. When you understand where it comes from, you stop absorbing it as something personal. You stop asking what is wrong with me, and you start responding strategically instead of emotionally. That shift is everything. So let's get into the tools. Tool 1 is about regulating your own nervous system, and this one is foundational. Here's what you need to understand. High-conflict people can shift from completely calm to explosive in a matter of seconds. And what most people do without even realizing it is match that energy. The moment they get loud, you get loud. The moment they panic, you panic. It happens automatically. So the next time you feel that tension rising, your heart rate climbing, your chest tightening, that is your cue. That is the moment to take slow, deep breaths. Feel your feet on the floor. Ground yourself in your body. Staying calm when someone around you is completely activated is not weakness. It is actually the greatest power available to you in that moment. Because high-conflict people feed off emotional reactions. When you stop giving them that fuel, everything changes. Now let's talk about tool 2, and this one is about not getting hooked by inflammatory words. Here's what you need to understand about high-conflict people. They have an extremely low frustration tolerance. Even the smallest pushback can feel like a full-on attack to them. So your nervous system says defend yourself, explain your side, correct the record. That instinct makes complete sense. But here's why you need to resist it. When you get defensive, you are actually confirming their deepest fear, that nobody is listening to them. And that confirmation? It pours gasoline directly onto the fire. Escalation happens fast. So instead, let them vent. Stay calm. Do not match their energy. I know that sounds almost too simple, but when you do this consistently, something genuinely shifts in the dynamic. The pressure starts to soften. The intensity begins to drop. Not because they changed, but because you stopped adding fuel to the fire. Now let's talk about tool 3, and this one is huge. Staying neutral and refusing to take sides. Here is what happens. High-conflict people are almost always in conflict with someone. And they will come to you, pulling you into their story, explaining in great detail why the other person is completely wrong or absolutely terrible. It feels like they just need someone to understand them. But your job in that moment is not to agree. Your job is to listen without validating the conflict or becoming another player in their drama. Here is a specific technique that works beautifully. Instead of saying things like, wow, they sound awful, or you are totally right, ask questions like, how did that make you feel? That simple shift does something powerful. It lets them feel genuinely heard without pulling you into the conflict as a participant. You stay present, you stay compassionate, but you stay completely out of the fire. Tool 4 is one of the most personal ones for me, and honestly one of the most important. It is about recognizing codependency patterns within yourself. Codependent people feel immediately responsible the moment someone around them is upset. There is this automatic pull to fix it, soothe it, make it better. And in doing that, you absorb their emotion as if it were your own. I grew up in a codependent family, and I can tell you firsthand that one person's emotional state could set the entire room on fire within minutes. Everyone adjusted, everyone shrunk, everyone tried to manage that one person's feelings. Here is why this matters so much in the context of high-conflict people. They are drawn to codependent people like a magnet. Why? Because softer boundaries make it significantly easier to pull someone in emotionally. When you feel responsible for their pain, you become the perfect target for their chaos, every single time. So what does breaking that codependency pattern actually look like in practice? It starts with giving yourself permission. Permission to say, I cannot be around this energy right now. Permission to say, I do not have the resources to help you today. Permission to limit how much time and communication you allow with someone who consistently pulls you into their storm. These are not cruel choices. These are not selfish choices. These are survival choices. These are acts of deep, essential self-care that protect your nervous system and your mental health. And here is the truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If someone is constantly draining you, you have nothing left for the people and things that genuinely matter in your life. Setting these limits is not abandonment. It is wisdom. Now I want to give you one final tool, Tool 5, and this one is something I want you to practice until it becomes completely second nature to you. Tool 5 is one phrase. I trust you know how to deal with this. Imagine a coworker venting about a situation for the 10th time. You briefly validate them by saying that sounds really frustrating, and then you hand it back with, I trust you know how to deal with this. No fixing, no absorbing, no drama. just a calm, clean exit from their chaos. So let us recap all 5 tools. Regulate your nervous system. Resist getting hooked by inflammatory words. Stay neutral and never take sides. Recognize and break codependent patterns. And use the phrase that returns responsibility where it belongs. These tools will not change the high-conflict person. They were never meant to. What they will change is how much power that person has over your peace, your energy, and your life. Drop your experiences in the comments below. You are not alone in this, and I will see you in the next one.